Welcome back into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey. It is now 4 UFL players who the Cowboys reportedly are working out, and I wonder if that number will continue to grow. We'll go in depth on each of these players, with the 4 workouts coming up. They actually went down today, I should say, for the Dallas Cowboys. 2 former first-round picks, players you've probably heard of, Gareon Conley and DeAndre Baker, both who spent this past season as cornerbacks for the DC Defenders. Noah Dawkins, the Michigan Panthers linebacker, and then the guy we discussed earlier today, Willie Harvey Jr., the St. Louis Battlehawks linebacker. Do you want to sign a UFL player on that list or somebody else altogether? Everyone loves Hakeem Butler. Can't say I blame you. Do you want to sign one? Y for yes, N for no. Let's go more in depth on each of these guys, beginning with Gareon Conley, the DC Defenders corner who was a first-round pick all those years ago by the Las Vegas Raiders. Looking at corners is interesting. Both Conley and Baker fall in the same bucket. Former high-round picks, first-round picks, who flamed out kind of quickly in the NFL, now trying to jumpstart their NFL career once again. There is the possibility of an open roster spot or two in the quarterback room. And by the way, I don't think any UFL workout means anything about Trayvon Diggs or DeMarvion Overshown or any of the actual starters, because these are UFL players. Like, the expectation should be set accordingly. Diggs, Bland, Lewis going to make the team. Kellen Carson will make this team. These other spots, I think, are all open for grabs. And Conley does have the draft pedigree that has intrigued Dallas previously. The big difference here is he was out of football for 2021, 2022, and 2023 before latching on with the Defenders this past season. He was a first-round pick out of Ohio State. We had discussed him a few times, but when he'd been moved on from by the Raiders, the trade, the Texans had cut him. We mentioned him years ago on the Cowboys Report. Now we're back here again looking at that as a conversation, which is kind of funny to think about. Conley and his coverage stats for the UFL this past season, nothing too terribly bad. 55.3% completion percentage, 275 yards, 4 TDs, 2 interceptions, 5 pass breakups. Of course, that's 2 TDs allowed. I'm looking at an April 2nd, 2021 video was the last time we discussed Gareon Conley. How funny is that? How time is a flat circle. The issue for Conley and why he was out of the NFL for so many years, injuries. He didn't play very much in 2017, didn't play in 2020 with injuries. He just missed time. Basically played about 2 seasons worth of NFL football. From his time 2017, 18, 19, 20, 2 years worth of NFL time. Numbers not very good. A lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards allowed. I thought he was better in 2018 than he was in 2019, but he had been away from football for so long, has given himself a second shot at it with the way he played for the DC Defenders. You got 4 open roster spots. You're not going to pay this guy a bunch of big guaranteed money. Take a look at him, see what kind of shape he's in. Is also worth mentioning, by the way, as it relates to Gareon Conley. He does turn 29 at the end of the month. So he is a little bit older than most players are, that would be signing at this time of the year. From the UFL, I should specify. So how many UFL players will the Cowboys sign? I think they're going to get at least one. Let me know at the pinned comment of today's video. DeAndre Baker is the other notable corner. Again, probably a player you've heard of. 2019 first-round draft pick out of Georgia. Spent 1 year with the New York Giants. We will explain why in a little bit. 2020 to 2021, he was with the Kansas City Chiefs. He had been cut in the 2020 campaign. I'm looking at a November 17th, 2020 video. Cowboys rumors, signed DeAndre Baker. Funny how things don't change. God, I feel old right now, by the way. Was out of football for several years, then again, latched back on with the DC Defenders. He wasn't great either. He got beat a lot by on the Giants, I should specify there. 850 yards in 16 games played, only 8 pass breakups, 0 interceptions, by the way, in his NFL and UFL career. Didn't have that much success with the Chiefs, was kind of a backup player there as well. Did play pretty well for the UFL, though, for the Defenders. Under 53% completion rate, only 135 yards. He had been targeted, as I check my notes here, 34 times in coverage, so only allowed 18 catches. Conley, by the way, targeted 38 times, so Baker was better than Conley was. I do want to make that relatively clear. Cowboys also showing a little bit of a trend. We mentioned the linebacker we'll come back to here later on at the end of today's video. Baker was also an all UFL player. Is worth mentioning. Also worth mentioning were his legal woes that got him cut in the first place. If you don't remember, DeAndre Baker, a first-round pick for the Giants, by the way, premium investment, had been cut by New York after armed robbery charges. Now, those charges were later dropped. And if you remember, there was a paper trail of, hey, the victim just got a lot of money. And then they changed their story. And which pay him off. You don't face the legal charges anymore, because then the victim's not a victim. So, or isn't going to move forward, I guess, as a victim. So, is worth mentioning. Also, maybe a little bit worrisome after what happened with Kelvin Joseph. So, pick one to sign. GC for Gareon Conley or DB for DeAndre Baker. Which one would you rather go out and add if you want to add one for the Cowboys? Is worth mentioning Baker doesn't turn 27 until the early portion of this upcoming season. Noah Dawkins is the other linebacker the Cowboys brought in for a workout. All defensive players, probably not an accident, by the way. Dawkins was a brief career journeyman in the NFL, signed with the Bengals as an undrafted free agent. Then the Buccaneers picked him up. The Jets had him for a couple seasons, the Bears briefly, then most recently with the Michigan Panthers. The majority of his playing time coming with the New York Football Jets. He had 17 games played, 3 tackles. Basically everything on the special teams side, which is actually fine because you're looking to have that back end of the roster linebacker contribute on special teams. Dawkins with, this does kind of look like targeting, by the way, now that I look at the photo a little bit more in depth. Got to keep that crown up, buddy. 39 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 pass breakups. Didn't get beat, in a majorly negative sense in coverage. The high completion is fine. The yards being low is kind of all that matters on that front. Michigan Panthers had a fairly successful season overall for a UFL standpoint, I suppose. The Cowboys are looking at linebackers. I think that's been made pretty clear. There's 4 guys locked into a roster spot, right? Eric Kendricks, DeMarvion Overshown, Damone Clark, Maurice Leafau. Everything else is open. Linebacker 5, linebacker 6 potentially. And those guys are going to have to contribute on special teams. So looking at cheaper, younger guys who do have the unfortunate, complication of coming in off of an actual season and they're just going to be worn down and beat up, is worth doing, but sometimes those guys just don't quite have their legs under them the way they normally would. More on the last name to come, but if you haven't already, check out the Cowboys NFL draft hats from our friends over at Fanatics. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hats. There'll be a clickable link, by the way, in that other corner as well. Make sure you check it out. You can kind of see the little 3D effect they're going for. It's easier with the full, zoom in feature on your phone or on desktop, wherever you're watching. Go to chatsports.com/Cowboys draft hat to check it out. The last, but also the first one we heard about yesterday evening, Willie Harvey Jr., the linebacker most recently of the St. Louis Battlehawks. We're not going to go too far in depth on him. We did that earlier today on a previous video. He led the UFL, though, in tackles, 76, had the most forced fumbles and tackles for loss among linebackers with 9 and 2 respectively. 6 pass breakups, by the way, in coverage, 1 touchdown allowed. Former Browns player, I should say. Am intrigued by that one. I also wouldn't be shocked if a couple of these guys end up having multiple workouts lined up. So are you a Cowboys fan? We got 2 videos today. We're doing 2 videos a day, basically, from now on. And with some exceptions, we'll probably only have 1 video on Christmas Day. Hit that sub button, though, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Final thoughts here. I wouldn't be surprised if more workouts happen. From a logistical perspective, it could make some sense to do a day for the offensive players as well, if they have interest there. Now, of note, good job by Todd to point this out because I didn't realize it. UFL players can't technically sign until Sunday. That is when the UFL season is over and their contracts expire, blah, blah, blah. I would bet the Cowboys sign at least one of them. Whether it's the players mentioned and or other workouts still to come, I'd like to find the defensive tackle. That would make me kind of happy because there's just a really lack of depth at that defensive tackle spot. What does raise some concerns, I think, for Dallas is two of the top defensive linemen on this list that were all UFL players were Daniel Wise and Breland Speaks, players who were former Cowboys. So it makes you wonder, okay, are they really going to be an upgrade there? We'll go more in depth on some options to sign in, later on, by the way, so stay tuned for that. I will make this note again. Expectations should be low, for impact at least. You nailed the last two you signed, Brandon Aubrey and coming over from the spring football leagues. Those were mostly special teamers. If you put that expectation, backup special teamer, on some of these UDFA guys, compete for a roster spot, practice squad, that could end up being delivered from this group of players.